Hi, everyone. I'm here with Dan Sullivan, and we're ready to jump into the conversation. I wish you were here moments ago because we were really chopping it up, talking about the important things. But now we're going to get started and talk about Dan, some of the work that you do and what brought you to this field. And so I'm excited to learn some of that. So thanks for being part of this.
Absolutely, Dave. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Okay, let's start out with your credentials. What are the letters behind your name?
Yeah, that's been a fun journey, David. That has been a fun journey since 2000. Let's see here. So I graduated 2019 grad school. So at that time, I was a LLMSW, limited license master social worker. And for those who don't know, there are requirements for all that. So it's been a long journey with got all my supervision hours, did all that fun stuff, but then trying to pass this exam, and took it, and I'm transparent. I'm an honest guy, and I tell my clients that too. Like, that exam took me 7 times, and I finally got it right. And I feel like I lean on that a little bit too in the clients. Like sometimes it's like there's a lot of grit and resilience that has to be done in some of this work, and like there were days I'm human too where I'm like, man, I don't know if I can do this, because just that defeat each time. But when I passed it, I mean, the words came to describe back in October. But now I am a licensed master social worker.
Way to go.
Yep.
Fully licensed. I didn't know that was 7 times.
Yep.
Oh, that is respect, because I think that I'm a licensed professional counselor, and we also have a test. But I think that they make that MSW test much harder.
And they're changing it too now. But whatever. I defeated the beast. It is what it is. I defeated the beast, moved on. I have that pride.
You beat the big boss.
That's right.
Well, cool. And I love that you will bring that in and have testaments to like you have your own story to some of the struggles that we face in life.
Absolutely.
How did you get into this whole counseling field?
Well, that's an interesting question too, because thinking about undergrad and all this stuff and playing college football, I originally started criminal justice, and I went teaching, and I went accounting. I'm like, oh man, I feel like I'm destined for more than that. I feel like I should be with people. And so that was kind of my mom, who was a big proponent and just trying to, you ever thought about social work and counseling? I was like, yeah, I thought about it a little bit. So I made that switch actually my sophomore year of undergrad. And I haven't looked back since, and it's been a great decision for me just overall.
Wow. That's a lot of movement.
I remember being in that accounting class that one semester, and I'm like, what in the world am I doing here? This is not for me. It takes all kinds of people to keep this world turning, but I am not one of them. I am not an accountant. That's not me.
I spoke to 2 accountants today, and they were making jokes. They were funny jokes, but their attention to detail and what they were looking for is I feel like people, like for those of us in the helping profession, we see the world just differently, I think.
Yep, and that's why they do what they do, and it's an important part.
Ooh, so important. And we do what we do, and I'm glad that you are at Alliance. Coming to Alliance and thinking about the work that you do, has there been a model, a theory that you leaned on to say, like, this really captures for me how I see clients, sort of like filter the conversations?
Yeah, for sure, David. I use a lot cognitive behavioral therapy and trying to really understand, try to get a baseline of where my client is, like understanding their thoughts, feelings, and behaviors and actions, how they're all intertwined. And it starts a lot with education and understanding how those all play a role through your everyday life. And obviously starting with trying to identify some goals, but also thinking about trying to figure out where some of those, when we're thinking our thought patterns and where they're going, and how we can identify some of those traps that we do happen, where it's also like those cognitive distortions, right? We all have them, where it's like, sometimes people are all or nothing thinking, and how we can kind of check ourselves essentially, because in order to change any behavior, you got to be aware of it first. So thinking about, we're aware of the behavior. Now, what are some things that we can do, and then challenge some of those thoughts sometimes too, right? Because that can be uncomfortable too. Is that really a thought? Is that a good thought in that moment, right? And some of those times, those sessions can be a little more, how do I use the word? It's a little more comfortable, because it's really looking at the evidence. Is like, is there really evidence to support that thought that you're having? And a lot of times there isn't. And some reasons clients get in that thought process because that's what they know, and that's what they've been doing. And so they haven't been, and I feel like I come in where I can kind of challenge that a little bit and try to find that replacement behavior, that replacement thought in those moments where we're feeling super anxious.
That makes me want to ask, how direct do you think you are in that moment where a client needs to be challenged?
Sure.
Because thinking about your history of being a college athlete, and I'm like, oh, does he come strong and really direct?
Sure.
But I could also, in engaging you, I feel like you're also pretty soft.
Yeah, no, it's fair to say, David. I think it's a good balance for me. And obviously I also coach football too, right? So there's a difference in some of that, where it's like there's a time for, it's understanding and building that relationship with that individual. Because an understanding, okay, when's the time where I can really bring it? I'll use that, right, as a part of it being a coach, right, where I can really challenge that, where it's also like, that's not what is going to be helpful or needed in that moment. And I think there's a fine line. I think that's kind of changed over the last few years in my practice too, where it's like, I think I was more afraid initially early on of like really challenging some of that, challenging their thoughts and challenging some of that thinking pattern, because, I'm a little different, where it's like, I don't know if it's always, I shouldn't say no. I don't think it's helpful, in my opinion, to always kind of sit in your crap. I think we got to try to find ways to, if you think a certain thing all the time, every day, all day, you're going to start to believe it. That's just kind of how powerful the brain is. So trying to figure out how we can shift that into more of a positive look.
Yeah. I love it. And I hear in that a little bit of that, the experience teaching you and growing that wisdom, that with a relationship, I can lean in a little bit more with the relationship. We can have a little bit more of an honest conversation.
Yeah.
When we're new, that's a much trickier place to be.
Absolutely. Yeah, and trying to help, and it's thinking of some of the intake when you first meet a client, where it's like, when you're going through everything, trying to figure out kind of what's going on, what brings you here. And then I feel like I'm really good at, like, I could just identify 3 strengths right there in that moment, where it's like they're coming in for a reason, because they're struggling and feeling overwhelmed, but I feel like that's what I'm good at times, like trying to figure out where is that positive in that. There is more than they realize sometimes. Sometimes you need that unbiased perspective of your situation.
Okay, so then who is an ideal client? Who's somebody that, if they found your bio, like, I would work well with
Sure.
Dan?
Yeah, no, I think my ideal clients, teens, young adults, where it's like trying to figure out the everyday life and challenges, stressors, and especially with like teenagers, where I feel like I have a unique perspective from the fact of, I work in the schools, in the middle school, high school, talking to teachers, collaborating, working with parents all the time. And I think that's, especially working with teenagers, I think that's a big part of the work too, is really working with the parents and understanding, like, obviously when I'm working with parents, I don't want the kids' parents I'm working with hurting their feelings, kind of order to strengthen them. But also it's like, parents need to, sometimes it's hard for parents because they want to save them, right? They want to like really like catch them. But it's important, I think, sometimes for parents to stop kind of interferencing, and like, and it's hard because you're trying to help them, support them, but also when the parents are always kind of sometimes overbearing at times, where it's hard for them to kind of understand what the kiddo's going through. Sometimes we have to just let them figured out along the way too, and helping support. I think about pathogens. Okay, I know I'm not a big science guy, but I read this. Where like they always kind of worm their way in, even in the most sterilized environments, right? So it's better to kind of develop that immune system, right? To let the kiddos kind of go through tough times. I mean, and as somebody who's a young parent of only a 7-month-old, I don't know what that looked like for me in 15 years. I know it can't be easy, but I think it's really important, especially working with teenagers, especially with our kiddos who are a little more neurodivergent, ADHD. Whereas somebody who is working in schools, is part of a special education evaluation team. So I think I have a unique perspective of understanding kind of what different strategies and solutions work for kiddos that are more neurodivergent. So I feel like that's why I feel like I'm pretty successful with helping support teenagers as well as young adults.
Well, so in your day job,
Mhm.
working in a school, you get a lot of experience
Mhm.
seeing a wide range
Mhm.
of teenagers, and can speak to some of that, and help parents just give that another perspective of where, help them to kind of understand where to put some of this behavior.
Yeah, that's exactly right, David. I think that's exactly right, because a lot of times, well, I might bring the parent in the last 10-15 minutes, because they are part of the process too, I believe, to help support behavior that they're seeing at home, or whatever the case may be, because it's a team effort. We're all team, whatever the individual, whoever it is, and that's important for that individual to see that.
That was something I didn't, when we started Alliance, we were building all these values, and I wanted
Mhm.
compassionate hosting. We better be evidence based, so you
Sure.
pass the test on the CBT. But then Dr. Zommerly brings in this. Well, what about the value of collaboration?
Mm.
I was like, okay, that's a big word. That sounds good.
Yeah.
But I can't believe it, as we've been around as long as we have. I can't believe how true uh, the value of collaboration, of how much that's needed, and how that seems to benefit everyone, from
Mhm.
the teenager sitting
Yep.
in the couch across from you, the parents involved, school, primary care, if there's medication,
Yep.
like there's so many voices in the well-being development process. Uh, he was right.
Well, I mean, David, you bring a good point. I think it used to be, okay, well, I'll handle my section, I'll handle this, I'll do this, but now I just gotta look at the whole person, the whole everything to help support. Because like it's like, right, talking about a physician, right? Someone who's managing the medications, like how's that been going? Like, like obviously being at Alliance, it's fantastic, having the resources that we have with practitioners, and like really helping, because I meet with Megan sometimes to collaborate on some things, how it's going, cases like that. I think that's important, because we're looking at the whole person.
Right. Love it. So, um, I'd like to ask, with your schedule, you're open to seeing new clients?
Yep,
Great. And you'll do both an in-person and virtual?
absolutely. Yep,
And given your daytime job, that means it's a
a lot of
after
evenings. Yeah,
school.
yep, yeah, a lot of
Good.
evenings. I feel like, I think that's an important times. Obviously, we have, especially with teenagers, right? We're working parents and that sort of thing. Um, that's why, especially thinking 15, 16-year-olds, where I feel like, not that virtual is not good, but I feel like there's more work that can be done in person at that age range. Now there are some exceptions to that, but I feel like it's more beneficial for in person for sure.
So you'll start with the in-person, and then when
Especially at that age. Now, if a young adult or adult, then I feel like it's a little bit different, in my opinion, um, for treatment.
yeah, love it. Okay. Um, it's fun to imagine all these roles, the social worker in a school setting,
Mm.
the football coach, the new dad, the
Mhm.
um, the social worker in an office setting. I,
Yep.
I love all the things that you bring to bear when sitting across from somebody, especially sitting across from a teenager who needs some help figuring out what's next.
Yeah, figure out some guidance and figure out and sometimes you just need some structure, right? Try to figure out what that can look like. And um, yeah, I mean, I think that's what, I mean, I know you can't see on here, I'm 6'3.5", right? Like I come across maybe as somebody, but my wife always jokes with me, you're just a big teddy bear. And yeah, there's some truth to that, sure, right? Where I can, there is some truth to that, where I feel like I want to be a warm, compassionate host, to help support, be alongside the journey.
Well, I'm grateful that you took this time to talk with me, and I'm certainly glad that you are at Alliance. And I love to think about um, those young people that get to sit across from you and
Yeah.
to experience the wisdom and what it's like to be in your office. So thank you.
No, David, I do appreciate this time to help. I think this was really beneficial, and I'm just grateful for Alliance and helping support this along and trying to figure out. There's a lot of people that definitely need support, right? And I hope we can reach more of them to help support them, because obviously I believe Alliance is we might be biased, but Alliance is a great place. And I think there's a lot of great clinicians here that are doing a lot of good work to help support our individuals in our communities.
Well, all right. Well, have a great rest of your day. Talk to you
Thanks,
later.
David. Yep.